everyone, and welcome back to my GNM Digestible Morsels series. In the previous episode I explained in a kind of summary of how we can support the healing phase of disease, and this was mainly on the physical level. So in this video I'm going to look further into healing on the psyche level. So the main aspect of this is identifying your conflict and understanding the process, as we can then accept the process and allow the healing without fear, as we know exactly what we can expect. The biological programs are subconsciously controlled, and we often do not know the conflict that has been triggered until we experience symptoms. And as the subconscious is conditioned by our deepest emotions, beliefs and experiences, these can alter our perception of situations. If someone has a trauma at a young age, it may not necessarily have triggered a conflict, but emotions surrounding that trauma could become a part of the subconscious. Some could say they become trapped emotions. The way I see it is this: a child feels abandoned on their first day of school. It may not necessarily have triggered a conflict if there wasn't a DHS moment, but if that abandonment was deep enough, it is as if they put on tinted abandonment glasses at that time, and from then on, until that emotion was healed or released, they are viewing the world through these abandonment glasses. This causes anything that can be perceived as an abandonment to be amplified, and they could perceive that they felt or have been abandoned in everyday situations where there may not even be any grounding for it, according to someone without these glasses on. And it may even cause them to have an irrational fear of abandonment, or even expect to be abandoned in their lives. I have used kinesiology techniques and EFT to release trapped emotions like this in myself and clients, and it really can make a big difference. I'll likely do a separate video on this in the future, because it's not really part of GNM for this series. So we'll go back to GNM though, but as we understand this, we can see now how the conflicts we experience will be highly subjective and dependent on our subconscious perception of a situation. So the problem with the subconscious mind is there is no logic and very little control. So it runs on these emotions and beliefs, and there's not much we can do about it. It'll just do its thing, what it believes is right. But when we identify a conflict and we find out the reason why something is happening in our bodies, what we are doing is we're bringing that subconscious program into the conscious mind. And here we can apply logic and reason. This in itself can literally neutralize the program, and in the same way we can neutralize tracks and triggers of chronic conditions. Sometimes it's a bit more complicated, but often this is all that's needed. Saying that, we don't want to be dwelling on the conflict and digging deeply into the subconscious and bringing up stuff. That's not what we want to do. We just need that understanding. And in fact, we have to be careful that we don't dig too deep and relive things and that, because you could actually re-trigger the conflict by doing that. So we just simply need to understand, like I said. And when we understand, the fear of the unknown is dissolved as well. And we can accept and allow the healing to take place. We also know what to expect in the programme, and therefore we will welcome new symptoms with eagerness that the healing is progressing nicely. So let's have a little look then on how to identify a conflict. Well, the easiest way is to search for your symptom or your condition on the Learning GNM website. If you are having trouble identifying your conflict, you could contact one of the GNM practitioners or a therapist who works with GNM principles for a session to help you. My husband Lloyd and I offer online GNM support, and there are others around the world too. But I highly recommend that you do your own work with this, because it is so empowering and it really helps you to really sort of transform your thinking surrounding your health if you can do it yourself. There are also groups that you can join on social media, like the one that I've got on Facebook, the German New Medicine GNM UK community group, which you can ask questions and have what your suspicions are for the conflict that you've had confirmed and things like that. So if there are multiple germ layers in the body part that you are having symptoms in, you will need to identify which germ layer that is involved. So I do this by mapping out the symptoms of biological programs on a compass overlay, something like I've done here. I used this for identifying a nasty rash that I had, as I didn't know if it was involving the corium skin or the epidermis. And here is an example of what I did. So when I do this, I highlight the key differences in bold capitals and use this to compare with what I was experiencing. And it became obvious that I'd had an attack conflict because I was having fungal activity there, and obviously fungus doesn't exist in the new brain germ layer, in the ectodermal germ layer. So I knew from that, just from that fungus, that it was a corium skin program and therefore an attack conflict. And here is also one I did for breast programs. So you just need to fill out the essential info from the Learning GNM website, and then you should be able to see these key differences in the programs and therefore relate them to what you're experiencing. So when you know your conflict, think back to when the symptoms started. I find creating a timeline of events and symptoms really helpful, maybe a little bit like this. So you'd sort of start by mapping out when the symptoms started, maybe any other symptoms that you might have had, and also things that were happening around that time. You will find that something happened in the weeks or months or even up to a year or so before the symptoms started. And the one thing to remember is that the symptoms will indicate when the trauma was resolved, not when it began. That's something that is really hard to remember when you get into it, and you know, you're looking at something and you're thinking, all right, okay, that's when it started, and then you get this light bulb moment, hang on, no, that is where it resolved. So that's something to keep bearing in mind. always, whatever you're doing with GNM, coming back to the laws and make sure you're still in line with them, because it's just such an opposite almost way of thinking. You need to really think on your head, and so you can get carried away going down the wrong path sometimes. So keep checking back. Hang on, am I doing this right now? Is this the resolution or is this the conflict? You know, that sort of thing. So you can also use then the biological handedness rule to find out what or who it is concerning, or if there's something associated with that area. So it's more of a generalization or localized conflict. Once you've identified your conflict, you can study the program to know what to expect, and then begin consciously allowing the healing to take place, in gratitude that your body has helped you to cope with your trauma. So I really hope that has helped you to understand how only identifying a conflict can actually be all that's needed, and also helped you to sort of ascertain whatever conflicts are relevant in your life. And in the next video, I will take you through a step-by-step guide I put together to help you to apply the principles of GNM into your healing, and give you some tips on how you can start trusting in your body and trusting the process. Thank you for watching.